edition here on the BarnBurner Network and Zingo TV channel 250. Just reminding you as we start this show to please go ahead and download our application of BarnBurner and Zingo TV on its respective stores on iOS and Android. Remember that applications are completely free and there is no reason why not to download them. As well, remember that that Zingo TV can be acquired on both on Google Chromecast, Amazon Sticks, and Amazon Fire TV Sticks, on Roku and Roku Sticks, and on all TVs 2016 and forward. So I am waiting right now for John to appear, get on board, so that we can talk about what has transpired in the world of soccer. He should be here soon. But in the meantime, let's talk a little bit about what has happened elsewhere in sport. And we'll start with the MLB. MLB, Major League Baseball, has come up and said that they want to play 162 games with fans in the stands, that they are going to secure the environments. One of the questions that I have with respect to Major League Baseball is, have they even looked at what's happening around, not just in the United States or Canada, but around the world? Are they not conscious that last season in their World Series, last game of the World Series, there were positive tests of COVID? It's really, really unbelievable that the Commissioner of Baseball, Manfred, is still trying to isolate the situation, that fans can go into the stands, that players don't have to be isolated. The other thing, you want to play Major League Baseball. The Toronto Blue Jays cannot play in their own stadium because the Canadian government has a restriction on travel into their borders. So you are going to make that team select a stadium in the US. Most likely it's going to be Buffalo again, which is the home of their AAA affiliate, the Buffalo Bisons. But where are the Bisons going to play? Because they have to play a AAA season, and basically, they will have to move to Florida, most likely. So I'm not sure how to depict this. Do you really want to risk the lives of people, or just or I don't know? It's just crazy. But I don't know. It's just, to me, it's just unreasonable what they are trying to do. And I don't see it happening. I mean, it's just not in my idea. It's not feasible. From the other end, oh, here we go. Mr. John Freeman Olsen is coming on, and here he is. Here's Mr. Freeman Nelson. John, how are you doing? Welcome to your home back again.
greetings from the Panhandle. Well, not the Gulf Coast of Florida. I was trying to figure out where I was, but I guess you could one more day of vacation and then heading back to civilization tomorrow and back to Office HD on Monday.
Wow, that's it. It must feel strange to not to have all your apparatus to the side, no?
It does. The hamsters are having issues, and it might happen during the show when it comes to the strength of the internet cable. So there have been some challenges this week, and there's a lot of first world problems. But I will say this: talk about first world problems. You're trying to sit here and watch what's going on in the world, and when the cable system here in this particular city doesn't match your cable system at home, and you're used to doing things, like you hit your remote and you're looking for a specific channel, and it's like, go to X, and your remote works, and you go to channel X. Here, you look at the grid, and you're sitting there going, oh, okay, all right, so I'd like to get that channel, and then you try to work the remote to try to get it to that channel, and you don't have that particular section of the cable package here in the house. So yeah, it's kind of a fishing expedition, which means then I have to go to the computer to try to watch things on the cable system. And because of the wonky internet speeds, it's like, you're watching a game, and you're watching a game, and then you're watching a game, and it stops and it reloads and stops and reloads. And so, like I said, it's first world problems, no doubt, but sometimes makes it a little difficult to work.
Oh man, so
first world problems, I know.
So, John, I wanted to. The world of soccer this week has been
crazy.
Starting with the news of Barcelona that they have postponed now their elections due to the COVID. So there is no date announced again.
I got pushed into mid-March.
Yeah, well, we'll see. So, who do you think is the right man for the job? Because now everyone seems to be in one sync of what they want to do with the club, but no one seems to be wanting to do it.
Well, I mean, you're looking at either. I mean, I know that Freisha is probably the third man in the group, but it really comes down to Laporta or Victor Font. And with Joan Laporta, you have someone who has been there before, and that's his rallying cry. That's where he's planting his flag. It's like, look, I've done this before. We've been in the situation where we've had to build before. I've done it before. I can be the guy. Victor Font doesn't have the experience within the club that Joan Laporta does. But where Font is concerned, he's like, okay, we can fix it. We can bring in the legends. We can bring in Xavi. We can do this. We can do that. And so it's just going to come down to really for the board and the vote, who they trust. Is it going to be bringing in Laporta, who's been here before? Do you trust what he's done in the past to be able to do it again? Or do you bring in Victor Font because he's the new guy who has the same ideas, kind of, sort of? So literally, I think it's just going to come down to old guard thoughts versus new guard thoughts. It's going to come down to either Laporta or Font. And really what the vote is going to come down to is just the vibe that they get. Do they want to have someone who has the experience of doing it but in the past, or do they want to bring in a new guy who has all of this these ties to the legends and bring the legends back to the club, make it more insular, those kinds of things? So literally, I think it's just going to come down to the vibe that each individual voter has about wanting to go with experience or wanting to come in with somebody new who has ties to the past. I mean, it's a semantic argument, but it's a very important argument with both of these guys into really where your vibe is and what you feel.
So let's start. Now that we are talking about new hires, let's talk about the new hire of Toronto FC in Chris Armas.
Sure.
My perspective is that they had more seasoned guys
Yeah,
that they were talking to,
yeah.
uh, and guys that let's let. And I don't know where Armas came from because he wasn't even in the picture for the first 2.5 months, and now all of a sudden he appears on the docket.
Well,
What do you,
yeah. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I mean, with Chris Armas, it's an interesting hire, and I know that folks in Toronto who are fans are, it's picky, it's pitchforks and tiki torches because of his association with Red Bulls and the matches that these two teams played. So the larger point is, what did they see in Chris Armas? Is it just the MLS experience? Uh, and can Chris Armas? I think the question for Chris Armas is, can Armas adapt? I mean, because Red Bulls has a specific philosophy. Can Armas learn from his experience leading Red Bulls and from his time in Major League Soccer and be a coach where you have, and it's different talent pools here. Red Bulls, you build with John Wolyniec and Red Bulls 2, and you build from the academy and you build up, you build into the situation with younger talent. Caden Clark was an example of that late last season for Red Bulls. But for Toronto FC, we both know that MLSE is more than happy to spend to bring in quality talent, to bring in high price talent, to make that part of the dynamic. And if you have younger players like an Ao Akinola, like a Schaffelberg, like a Subasa Endo, you have those folks that have come through from TFC2, but you're not as reliant on TFC2 as Red Bulls are with Red Bulls Academy and Red Bulls 2. You have Josie Altidore, who is 31 and is on the back nine of his playing career. That I think we can stipulate that is in fact, he's in the back nine of his playing career. When he's healthy, he's a beast. I will stipulate to that as well. But can you, if you are Chris Armas, can you count on Josie Altidore for a full season? That's where Ao Akinola comes in. But Akinola is being courted by a club in the Turkish Super League.
and that's what was
MLSE. Do you take that financial outlay now, considering where the league is in heading into season 2 of going against a global pandemic economically, or do you hang on to Ao Akinola, knowing or just anticipating that you're not going to get a full season out of Josie Altidore? Do you give Josie some rest? Do you start Akinola? Would there be times where you would start them both? What have you? You've got the whole Akinola Altidore situation on one part. You've got Michael Bradley in the middle. I think that where Michael Bradley is concerned, you look for folks like Liam Frazier. Does Frazier get more minutes in 2021? What do you do, Michael Bradley? You're going to want him to be that fulcrum in the middle of everything. But then you have Omar Gonzalez at the back. You have Pozuelo, who I want to say is 28. It's a different vibe that Chris Armas is going to have to lean into here because of where he is as opposed to where he was. Frankly, for me, I was looking at folks like Adome Tarrant over Patrick Vieira. I mean, if you were looking at the names that have been around, I thought that Tarrant was more successful at NYCFC than Patrick Vieira was. I would have had Tarrant over Vieira. I know there was talk about Patrick Vieira being a part of the discussion. He'd been offered a contract by some. Christian Jack said, no, he hasn't. So there were a lot of other names that were out there. I wonder, was Chris Armas so gangbusters in the interview and sold on the notion of working with this talent, the experience of MLS and going forward? It's interesting for me. I'd love to know how he ended up being the guy, considering that the philosophies are as different as they are. That's going to be one of the questions early on in the season, whenever that is for Toronto FC here in 2021, how they adjust to Chris Armas and how Chris Armas adjusts himself philosophically and with his own philosophy toward Toronto FC and what they want to accomplish.
So you brought up the issue with Akinola.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they Toronto FC has been making a lot of acquisitions in the last little while, and which don't match up because they are loading themselves with midfielders like crazy. Like they have almost seven, I think it's 13 midfielders now on the roster, and you are counting on the four wingers to balance that out, which I don't like you said. To me, also, Yossi is at the end of his string. Also, Michael Bradley is also there in that aspect,
Yeah.
and I think sooner than later, Pozuelo is going to be leaving Toronto because he's getting limited time of play, not as often as he used to, and he's seeing a change in command in the way they want to guide this organization.
Well, and like I said, I think that right now Toronto FC is in a transitional period. And I want to know how much patience the front office is going to have, with Chris Armas as your coach, because of those folks who are so key and critical to you, who are north of 30 years old. Uh, I think that Pozuelo, if he continues to do what he's been doing offensively, I think that there's probably going to be a couple of offers come in for him. And the question then, once again, for Toronto FC, is this a time do you get that offer that you can't refuse when it comes to a talent like Pozuelo? I think that, that this is all of this transitional part right now for Toronto FC. We go back to Greg Vanney, and Greg was asked about it when he took the job at LA. And the question for him was, well, how much more can I do? And that was one of the big questions. And I think also another question involving Toronto FC, and it also by default is a question that you look at for Club de Foot de Montréal. Talk about that in a second. And the Vancouver Whitecaps, is that if you're Marc Dos Santos, if you're Thierry Henry, if you're Greg Vanney, now Chris Armas, if Greg Vanney was still coach of Toronto FC and you had another season that started in a bubble scenario, in a geographically locked scenario, if you had to relocate, would you want to go through all of that again, knowing what Toronto FC went through and in becoming Hartford FC last year? Do you want to go through all of those headaches for another season, but you have the opportunity to go to a place that means a great deal to you from your time at UCLA, from your time wearing the crest? So, it's TFC's in an interesting spot and a couple of different ideas here. And you're kind of caught in the middle of a bunch of different ideas, both economic and physical. And so I think it's going to be a challenge for Chris Armas, and it's going to be a challenge for the other two Canadian teams this year as well, for those same reasons.
Oh, definitely. I mean, to me, I am looking at Hartford FC again.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going to end up, because the Canadian government is not going to be lenient on their stance on their borders right now. So I don't if they come back, most likely will be August, September, if they will allow them to come back to play in Toronto, if
Right.
anything. But what do you do until then, and how do you do it? Because it's for the if there were more Canadian teams in the league, then you say let's do what the NHL did and
Yeah, exactly.
create a bubble. But with three teams, you don't have that luxury, because how much can they play each other?
Right. And I think that, don't be surprised if 2021 starts out like 2020. Post MLS is back. What I'm talking about is that you have kind of like what the NHL is doing, where you've structured things geographically, where all the Canadian teams are playing each other. Your divisions are set up specifically with just straight up division play, those kinds of things. So it wouldn't surprise me if, and Gio Savarese came out yesterday, I want to say, and said that things were looking to start, and obviously this hasn't been confirmed by anybody, but Gio Savarese came out and said that the season was going to be starting in early March. And with so many international windows that you have to navigate this year, it's a difficult ask for MLS to figure out, okay, how do we start as close to being on time as possible? And we haven't even gotten into the whole discussion with the MLSPA and force majeure and all that kind of stuff. But how do you start as close to your regular season start as possible, navigating your international windows, and still finishing, in December, knowing full well that you have to get 2 seasons in this year and next before the Qatar World Cup in 2022, and that's locked in. That is something that ain't going nowhere. So you've got to get in 2 MLS seasons between now and let's see, so 22 months. You have 2 seasons to get in 22 months. This is the season where you have to navigate international breaks. Next year, you're locked in place. And so you have to have everything squared away where the 2021 season ends. You have enough of a break. You get everything squared away toward CONCACAF Champions League. You start that. You start those in 2022. You start that practice schedule. Then you get everything locked down and get yourself ready for the 2022 season, which is immovable. You've got to get it in because you can't push it back any further just because of that World Cup thing.
So now I want to
A whole lot
switch.
on our plate this morning, huh?
A whole lot, and I want to get your views on what's happening in South America because your team is playing in South America in the South American Cup.
Defensa y Justicia, brother.
Yeah. So they are going into their semifinal match coming today at 6:30. It's going to be an interesting match, but we have Libertadores as well, which for the first time in almost 20 years, there is not an Argentinian team playing in the final.
Yeah.
And that was a hell of a shocker.
Yeah, it was. This was not the time to put out a clunker. And both Boca and River did exactly that. So it's Palmeiras. It's Palmeiras and Santos. They're going to be playing in 2 weeks. And to see those clunkers just show up in a big game like that, I mean, it was a bit of a stunner, but it's Palmeiras and Santos. And yeah, when Santos puts 3 on the board and absolutely shocks people, just how much of an egg got laid in the semifinals, with Santos knocking off Boca. Boca still has domestic competition to go for in the Copa Diego Armando Maradona, and River Plate, with Palmeiras. So Palmeiras. And the craziness of the Palmeiras match, you're up 3-0 after the first leg, and everybody's sitting there going, "Oh, I don't know, man. It's going to be rough for River Plate." But then River Plate comes storming back, and they score 2. It's 3-2. They think they've got the equalizer, then they don't. And, craziness there with Palmeiras, but Santos, just absolutely poking Boca Juniors in the eyes with both fingers. It's just like doink, and then putting 3 on the board.
It was the classic match.
Absolute shocker there.
BarnBurner, I don't think will be the same ever again.
They got to get people in there first. So I imagine what's like outside the building, but La Bombonera definitely would have made a difference. And I think that we see that with home field this season, regardless of where we're talking. I think that home field advantage in a bunch of sports has been taken absolutely away by the lack of fans.
Yeah, no. But I want to touch on this Santos Palmeiras game because it's at classic Maracanã, and the Brazilian government has said that they allow the league to have capacity, which surprises me.
That's you.
How
You got 2 weeks. You can say all you want right now, but between now and 2 weeks from now, things could be so markedly different. If you're a government official and you're telling me half capacity now, fine, more power to you. You got 2 weeks to figure it out. Things will change. Trust me.
I guess they want to get rid of some of the marginalized sections of the country, and that's a quick way of doing it.
Wow. Saturday morning, brother. You're in rare form.
So let's head now to the English League and today's matches so far.
Okay, all right. So we're going to get into today's matches. All right. So early this morning, we get the one match, and I and I'm not the only one here, but Jason Jarrett, Nick, and I have been looking at West Brom, and we're going, oh my God. It's a painful watch with Big Sam. And I mean, there was a number that came out. I want to say it came out either in the lead up to the match this morning with Wolves, or it came out this morning, where in all of Sam's matches that he's been in charge at West Brom has given up 15 goals. I think it's like 5 matches, or it's either 5 or 6 matches. They've given up 15 goals, or 4 matches, or something like that. In all of the matches that Manchester City played this year, they've only given up 13. I think that number is right. I'm going to check it real quick. But yeah, in Sam's matches, they've given up more goals than Manchester City has given up in 16 matches all season. So, of course, you're going up against Wolves, and I think that, we see what the difference is in Wolves when they don't have Raul Jimenez as a part of their lineup. And also, you could also maintain that since they sold Diogo Jota to Liverpool, that you don't have that second option either. And Traore, who was great last year at coming off the bench, being there and being that late game catalyst, he doesn't have those guys to play off of. This morning, you got to see the good in Willy Bolly. You got to see the bad in Willy Bolly. You got to see 2 penalties, and both were legit. I mean, the Bolly foul and the Connor Cody foul, they were both legit, so I don't have an issue with it. My issue just is how poor Wolves were defensively this morning, and how you allow a goal to be scored off a throw-in. That, to me, you had the 2 penalties, and all right, you put those to the side. But defensively, when you have a goal given up off a throw-in, long throw into the area, headed back, headed in, Rui Patricio looked like he was completely and totally flat-footed in trying to gauge where the ball was going. And, Catroni had a chance in the 82nd to tie it up at 3. But I think that, that seismic shift that you heard when West Brom is scoring 3 goals. I mean, okay, so coming, and this is how fired up I'm about this, about just how poor West Brom is with Big Sam. Coming into this match, they had only scored 11 goals all season long, which put them second to last in the Premier League, because only Sheffield United and Burnley have scored less, 9 goals. But you score 3 in this game against Wolves, who is now a -8 in goal difference in 14. It's just everything with Wolves has gone all kind of screwy, and it's just it's just bad form right now for Nuno Espirito Santo. But West Brom, oh my goodness! I mean, you should be driven crazy with what Big Sam doesn't do, or what he does, which translates into what he doesn't do. So it was just you wondered what was going on. But yeah, you had 2 poor sides playing, and it ends up getting a result. But yeah, Big Sam just drives me crazy. So yeah, next question.
So let's go to the first game that is being right now, is West Ham Burnley. And we know Burnley is going to be probably relegated to the second division.
There
Second.
are teams that are worse. I think that Burnley on defense, and here's the thought with Burnley. Remember, Burnley has new owners, and I want to see what the level of investment is because last season they didn't renew Jeff Hendrick's contract, and they also lost another couple of players. And the offense traditionally has been second for Sean Dyche. I think that defense will get them through. I think that they'll navigate it, but I think that there are teams that are worse. Obviously, Sheffield United, who is a shadow of their former selves, they got found out. They can't score and they have no defense, and so that's a bad combination. I think Sheffield United gets relegated. I thought that Fulham would be a part of the discussion, and I know that they've drawn their last 5 in a row. But it's just where Fulham is concerned, I don't see the firepower there, and also the level of investment. I think it's easy to say that Shad Khan is investing in Urban Meyer with the Jacksonville Jaguars instead of investing in Fulham when they need a striker. And I think that Brighton is the other team to look at here. I thought that when the season started, I thought that Brighton was going to be the third team relegated. I did not anticipate that it was going to be Sheffield United that was going to be a part of the discussion. I had West Brom, I had Fulham, I had Brighton. Those were my 3. I still think, actually, I take it back. I think that the 3 now are going to be Sheffield United, West Brom, and probably Fulham, unless something really bad happens with Brighton. But considering Brighton's run of form, where they're winless in their last 9. Graham
Well,
Potter.
no, they are leading now.
I know it's Leeds. I
It's
know
United.
I know it's a big 3 points that they need something serious for Graham Potter to keep his gig. But West Ham, Mikel Antonio is back for the first time in 2.5 months, and I think that's big for David Moyes. Burnley is going to keep things close to the vest all season long. I just think that defense will get them through. Brighton for me is a question mark. So I think it comes down to 4 or 5 teams for 3 spots. I think that it's going to be some combination of Sheffield United, Leeds, West Brom, and Brighton. So let's say 4 for 3 spots.
So let's look at so West Ham is beating right now is leading Burnley. Leeds is to Brighton, and the games tomorrow. Well, there's one game tonight, which Fulham I don't think has a chance against Chelsea.
No, they don't. Chelsea's at a -175, putting on the juice box hat really quickly. And then after that, it's Leicester and Southampton. Leicester's a -111 at 3:00.
So the games tomorrow are interesting.
Yeah.
You have the game, the game that I always like. I would always like to be at, but I've been there once. Man United against Liverpool.
Yeah.
That game is going to be an amazing game. Then you have Crystal Palace, Man City. Man City hasn't had successful very much as of late, and they are playing very sloppy defense lately.
Well, and I think that when you can outscore the other guy and what they've done in reorienting things with Pep Guardiola, where De Bruyne is playing the 9 role, and Ilkay Gundogan is playing out of his mind right now. I think that with the defensive lapses at the back, I think that with what you're seeing offensively for Manchester City, remember, Manchester City has only given up 13 goals all season long. So they've had to rely on Ederson and Zach Steffen between the sticks. So, yes, folks are getting shots on net and such, but your goalies are coming up. Your goalkeepers are coming up big. And so, obviously, I don't see any issue with Manchester City. I think Crystal Palace and Roy Hodgson will try to muck it up as much as humanly possible, try to turn it into a grinder. It won't be the prettiest thing in the world. I think that Manchester City probably wins at 1, maybe 2-0 if Crystal Palace decides they want to chase the game late. But your Liverpool Manchester United match, right now, the line hasn't moved a whole lot. Since the line first came out, Liverpool was the favorite at -101, -102. That line hasn't changed. Manchester United is at +270. The draw is a +285, 290. So I look at it this way, and we talked about it this morning on the Power Hour before I came over. So right now, you look at the standings, and with Liverpool,
3 points.
yeah. So you look at the standings with Liverpool and Manchester United. and Manchester United, same amount of matches, 3 points clear. I think that Liverpool has to look at this as a must-win game, because if they don't, then it's either 4 points or 6 points if something happens and separation continues. I think that Manchester United looks at this as a game they don't have to win because of that 3-point lead. I think that if they get out of there with a draw, they're happy because your margin's still at 3. So I like the draw here. I think that it's either goalless or it's 1-1. And I just think that you have to look, and it's a point that I've made consistently this season, with all of the injuries that Liverpool has, you have to look at Liverpool's backline. And, you know, Joel Matip, and we know that Van Dijk is out of the discussion, but I mean, just the backline and the injuries at the back will always be my first issue when it comes to discussing anything involving Liverpool. Yes, Liverpool can put the ball in the back of the net. That's not up for debate. But for me, it's Liverpool's backline that is the issue here. I think that Manchester United will have those opportunities. I think that it's probably going to be Bruno Fernandes that gets the goal. I think that Pogba comes up big in this one. I think that Pogba is a catalyst here. I don't see him as a focus. I see him as a catalyst. And so I think that others step up. I think that it's probably 1-1 by the time that we're done. So that's how I'm looking at this one. So, you know, it's a game I think that Liverpool thinks they have to win. Manchester United not thinking that way, and that's why I think it's a draw.
So the last game, Monday afternoon, is Arsenal Newcastle.
Oh,
And God,
Newcastle's awful. I'm sorry. Newcastle is awful to watch. They're awful to look at. Steve Bruce should not be managing in the Premier League because Newcastle is some of the most painful soccer, period, regardless of country, regardless of division. It's awful because I don't think he knows how to use the resources he has on hand. And when you have guys like a Joelinton, you have Callum Wilson, who came over from Bournemouth, and he's had moments this season where he's been strong for Newcastle when they decided to score goals. You've had Miguel Almiron, who the second he walked in the door, Steve Bruce apparently had no earthly idea what Miggy was supposed to do, where Miggy was supposed to play, and how he could help because he was miscast. And then when you have substandard results because of what you've done, then you create more of an issue for yourself. And then you have him go in league play, you have him go in the FA Cup, and he lights things up, and you're wondering what's going on. This has all been on the decisions of Steve Bruce about how to play. Yes, the number one thing for Steve Bruce that he has to do for Newcastle is keep Newcastle in the Premier League. That is his first marching order. That is directive number one. That is not like, it's not like in RoboCop where directive number 3 was the one that was classified until the moment that you triggered it, and then you had to do something differently. This is directive number 1. And directive number 1 from Mike Ashley until he can sell Newcastle is to keep Newcastle in the Premier League. Much like what we see with Big Sam at West Brom, where Steve Bruce is concerned, it is some of the most painful soccer to watch. It is, you know, when given the opportunity to watch Newcastle play soccer on television, if it's noise in the room, I'll have it on just to see from an Atlanta perspective how he misuses Miguel Almiron. But Newcastle right now, they're 7 points clear. They've lost 3 of their last 5. They've only got 2 points in their last 5. But Newcastle should be a whole lot better. They have been completely miscast with their starting 11s, and at 5-4-8, you've got you're outscored on average by about a half a goal a game in your first 17 matches. But it's a painful watch. Newcastle fans deserve better. Newcastle as a club should be better. I mean, I've always thought, and this is once again a point that we made on Soccer Over There, Newcastle should be one of those clubs that should be in the upper half of the table. They were a part of that fight briefly with Rafa Benitez, but then when Mike Ashley decided he did not want to invest for Rafa Benitez and they were demoted to the championship and Rafa stayed and then they finally got promoted back, it's just Newcastle is a mess. And if there weren't teams that were worse, I would say, and if they didn't build that margin that they've already got, I would say that Newcastle would be a part of my relegation discussion. But because teams are far worse, they're not. So Steve Bruce, what you will continue to see at Newcastle is a team doing just enough to get by, which is a disservice to their fans. And they're going to stay up in the Premier League. They're going to continue to get the Premier League dollars. When you have all of the investment that Steve Bruce has had in the last couple of years from Mike Ashley, bringing in players, bringing in high-price transfers, and you're still where you are in the table, it should tell you one thing and one thing only, that this level of lack of success is on Steve Bruce and his philosophy. He should not be coaching Newcastle because it would be far better with the talent they have on hand if he wasn't there.
So let's move on because La Liga is not heavy, is not working. We are going to move right to the Italian ones.
Right on.
And
what happened yesterday, man?
One shocker of a game between Roma and Lazio. Oh my God. I don't know if Roma showed up to the game or it was just that, oh, we'll give this one up. From start to finish, and I watched the whole match. I've never watched a whole match of Roma ever. And I don't know why I started with this one.
Should tell you something, yeah?
Oh my God.
Don't do it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was having a bottle of wine and I had it all because I had to drown myself in sorrow watching this game.
Yeah, and with Roma right now, that really puts them. I mean, they're still in European competition spots right now. They're third, but the problem is Juve is behind them, and they've played 2 less matches. Milan and Inter still have to play this weekend. So this loss really, really damaged Roma this week when it comes to everything else in place. Because if you think about it, well, we can go back to 7th really to see the impact that this loss has had. Because we talked about Juve, Atalanta, Napoli, they both right now, Atalanta and Napoli both have 2 matches in hand. So let's say those results happen. You could be passed by Atalanta and Napoli with the results for those games in hand if you're Roma. Lazio has drawn themselves to at 31 points, and they're part of that second group because Sassuolo's behind them with a match in hand. But you can go back as far as 6th or 7th and see the impact that egg that got laid yesterday by Roma has, because they're in the barn at 18 matches right now. They were hot. They had been unbeaten in their last 4. But that loss yesterday was huge.
Yeah, considering that the other teams are chasing them, kind of have easy matches. That the only team that doesn't have an easy match is Juventus, as they face but for the rest, I mean, Milan plays Cagliari, which Milan should win with ease. Atalanta faces Genoa, which it's a mismatch completely.
Uh-huh.
And Napoli plays Fiorentina. Fiorentina can have a spark and make it difficult for Napoli, but I think at the end of the day, Napoli either will tie or will win by 1.
Well, and you look at it, and this is all stuff that happens. I mean, Cagliari is Monday Night Football for Italy. It's at 2:45 Eastern time. But we'll start with Sunday. I have no intention of getting up or being up at 6:30 in the morning on Sunday morning. But that's when Napoli and Fiorentina play. Napoli is a substantial favorite at -190. Fiorentina is north of +500. So don't touch it. The anticipated result should be Napoli. Crotone, Benevento, the second game on the board, also at 9 o'clock, going with Sassuolo and Parma. Sassuolo's a favorite. Once again, Sassuolo, they should get the 3 points and go. Crotone, Benevento, don't be surprised, is a draw, and they're fighting for a relegation spot. Noon, Atalanta, Genoa. You'd mentioned the margin. Atalanta is north of plus 415, a substantive favorite. Genoa, north of plus 1125. That's how poorly they're thought of in this match against Atalanta. Draws a plus 560. Once again, don't touch it. The big one at 245 on Sunday, Inter and Juve. Inter probably gets it done. It's a grinder. Inter's at plus 142, north of plus 140. Juve is north of plus 190, which is a bit of a surprise. I'm fairly certain, and I'm going to check it real quick to see if you can get Juve at north of plus 200. And you can. There are places where you can get them north of plus 200. The draw option, you can get anywhere from plus 235 to plus 265. So I think Inter gets it done. I think it might take a little while, but I think that Inter gets the Duke on Juve. But that we go back to the loss yesterday with what we saw, and I think it did a lot of damage to Roma for the next couple of weeks.
So, what are the things that I wanted to discuss this, but you're on vacation and I didn't want to bug you.
Right.
It's the news that Sergio Ramos might be heading to Juve.
Probably heading everywhere. I mean, I've seen PSG, I've seen Juve. Everybody's linked to PSG as well. They should, considering how PSG is not afraid to spend any money. We're in the window. Does anything happen in the final 2 weeks? I think you and I will probably talk 2 more times before we have any kind of definitive answer. But if PSG wants to put together the super club and bring in Dele Alli and bring in Sergio Ramos and bring in, Messi or whomever in the summer, PSG is not going to stop, because what PSG wants to do is create the international super club. They want to win international competitions. They don't want to just be in the final anymore. They don't want to lose in group play anymore. And you see a club that gets so close, and they think that they need to throw money at the problem to get that final ring. So Sergio Ramos is going to be linked to everybody and their mother, and probably he'll be linked to my mom by the time it's done, and what my mom wants to do for the state of Ohio. So he's going everywhere, and like I said, we still have another 2 weeks left in the window. So talk will pick up in the next week and a half. By the time we catch up in 2 weeks, we might have better answers.
Okay. So from Italy, let's move on to Germany, because again, Bayern is, I don't know what's happening to Bayern.
I mean, this I think that you look at, and by their own admission, they rely on Lewandowski at the front, and they rely on Manuel Neuer at the back. That's by their own admission. They have to work at everything going on in the middle. And, right now, tomorrow, you're a big favorite against Freiburg, as you should be. But also remember that Bayern is having to balance European play in addition to Bundesliga play. So don't be surprised across the board. And we've seen it early on with, we talked about Italy, and we've seen it early on in the Premier League, but teams have started to fall back a little bit, Aston Villa and Southampton. Don't be surprised with all of the conversations having to do with all of the clubs that we're not used to seeing in these places. Right now, and it's a bit of a group when you're looking at 1 through 9, 1 through 4, and this is match week 15, match week 16 that we're talking about here. So Bayern a point ahead of Leipzig, but Bayern once again with that match in hand should get the Duke tomorrow. That puts their margin at 4 with 16 matches played. Then Leverkusen and Dortmund, it's the same cast of characters, but Leverkusen, having lost 3 of their last 4 coming into this weekend, is
And they lost today.
I mean, they were at the top of the ladder, and that was that push that I've been talking about. But then once again, you lose 3 of 4, you fall back a little bit. Dortmund, right now, they've won 2 of their last 3. unbeaten in their last unbeaten in their last three. They've only lost one in their last five. But once again, it's the same batch of folks that we're seeing, just the order's a little different. And it's how you manage European competition with what you're doing domestically. And the teams that have done that in the past, like a Bayern, they're the ones that you see by the time we're finished with league play. They're the ones at the top of the ladder. So not a surprise with Bayern, but once again, they're going to have to figure out how they want to do things as Lewandowski continues to get on in his career and as Manuel Neuer gets on in his career. Where does that second wave come from? I think that's the bigger question. Yesterday, Union Berlin got a win yesterday. And so with them having played 16 matches, they're right there as well. I mean, they're in the Europa League spot, which, their second year in the league, it's not the most exciting thing to look at times. But, when you get hot, you've won 3 of your last 4, you're unbeaten in your last 5, you're able to climb the ladder a little bit. Wolfsburg, they're in the qualification spot for Europa, but Wolfsburg's kind of hit a bit of a rough patch, recently. So it's how you navigate the European theater with your domestics. And that's why I think that by the time we get to the end of these seasons, you're probably going to see a lot of the same dance partners that we've seen before. Early on was where the teams that are foreign to this, they needed to make their play to try and stay up and navigate and maintain so they can be in European competition next year.
So I have my last question because we wouldn't get to one. We only have 3 minutes.
Yep.
Two teams that are making inroads in Bundesliga. One team that Leipzig, as of late, hasn't been playing its normal way, but Moenblanc is making inroads, and Moenblanc is the way they have been winning is just phenomenal.
Yeah, and once again, they were part of that discussion. They got the match in hand. They won their last 2. They knocked off Bielefeld, which they should have. But then I know that you're talking about the 3-2 back and forth last time against Bayern Munich, and that's when you can get these kinds of results, that's what folks are looking at about these new faces that we talked about. So Mönchengladbach, when they can get that win, they're at 24 points, but once again, match in hand. If they win, they get to 27, and this is where the whole this will put them in that Europa qualification spot. So Mönchengladbach hot. Freiburg, as of late, very, very hot. They've won 5 in a row, so they have rocketed up the standings too. And so, once again, it's just how you manage. And I look at festive fixture time. I look at the month of December and kind of set it aside for some weird results just because of how compressed things are. So get back into the tail end of January, early February, when you get into your schedule, that's where normal happens.
And my last question for you, is Schalke going to get relegated?
Yeah, no doubt. They're awful. It was great that they, got the win last
yeah.
Yeah, Jonathan Hoppe got the hat trick. A lot of folks are now keeping an eye on him to see if he'll continue his run of form for the United States as a national. Does he get any national camps? Those kinds of things. Schalke definitely gets relegated. Mainz probably gets relegated too by the time we're talking about it. And then it's up to that third spot where you've got a couple of folks, Hoffenheim, Bielefeld, and Cologne, going into that relegation playoff. But yeah, Mainz and Schalke are done. Just how bad they're done is the question.
So with that, in that note, just want to thank you again and remind all our wonderful viewers that this show can also be heard on the BarnBurner Radio Network and its 122 platforms on social media. Remember that to go to our website, barnburner.ca, for all the news, whether it is video, audio, written, but you can also download from there all the shows and all the shows that you have missed. BarnBurner, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it, because BarnBurner is sport and sports is BarnBurner. In the name of John Freeman Nelson from OSG Sports, by the way, download his application on iOS and Android every single time and enjoy the world of soccer at its best, because they do a hell of a good job. In the name of, as I said, of John Freeman Nelson and of Eduardo Harari, I I will welcome you for another great soccer next week at the same time, 11 a.m. We'll be here on Spanglish Sports World English Edition Soccer Outlook.